Yesterday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told CNN that the European Union's planned suspension of Russian gas exports may cause Americans more pain at the pump this winter. Let's watch.
Gas prices have actually fallen about $1.40 from their peak. Some are worried, though, that they could go back up in the winter. Should Americans be ready for that?
Well, it's a risk. And it's a risk that we're working on the price cap to try to address. This winter, the European Union will cease, for the most part, buying Russian oil. And in addition, they will ban the provision of services that enable Russia to ship oil by tanker. And it is possible that that could cause a spike in oil prices.
Yellen's warning comes after a proposed price cap on Russian energy earned the support of the G7. Guidance released by the Treasury Department on Friday warned Western energy companies that purchases of Russian oil above the price cap may result in sanctions enforcement action. As the European Union weighs implementing a similar price cap, President Vladimir Putin jeered at EU leaders over the weekend, calling the idea stupid and warning it will cause Europe to freeze this winter. And it very well might. I mean, people are going to have much more difficulty than they're already having procuring energy. Janet Yellen described this as a risk, but the implicit part, as she says that, is this is a risk worth taking, obviously, is what our government's saying. Well, this is, like, they're admitting this is going to be painful, and they're saying we're just going to do this anyway because we believe our Ukraine-Russia policy is the right one, or we believe our energy policy more broadly is the right one. A very confused energy policy of, like, punishing Russia, but then, begging Saudi Arabia for more gasoline, even though we don't want to drill more, we don't want to produce more domestically, but we have to ask for it from other. Like, it's just insane to me that I complain about this every time we talk about this subject. But my view is I don't understand why U.S. officials like Yellen and others don't get this. Like, the American people don't want to suffer this pain. Like, they don't want to freeze like their European compatriots. So if our government leaders don't listen to the people and don't rethink some of these policies, they're just the people are going to, not literally rise up, but eventually, I guess, if it got that painful, but they're going to vote them out. This is going to be the end of the Biden administration. Why don't they get that?
I know it's very distressing. It's a sort of classic example of cutting off your nose to spite your face, except you're cutting off someone else's nose, right? That's the thing here, is that the moral preening of the elites is always paid for by the working class, and so they can keep doing. You look at California, right? You have this huge energy crisis right now. The price of electricity is skyrocketing. The grid is about to collapse, right? But the rich people who have massive amounts of land, they all have their their sort of sunroofs, right? So they're not, paying for it. They're sitting there morally preening. They're, overwhelmingly support all of making electricity more expensive. And then it's their working class neighbors who end up paying for it. It's the same thing here. Working class people are going to end up paying for this at the pump, whereas, rich people zipping around in their electric cars, right, are not going to feel it, and then are going to brag about how they have an electric car, and so they're not feeling it. And the people, the American people, the working class, the middle class, were the people who were not consulted when we ran headlong into our, like you said, our Ukraine-Russia policy. And it's so distressing, especially now that finally gas prices are coming down after a high of, it was like $6 on average. It's very distressing.
Because there's no public appetite for doing this. It's not even like the 9/11 scenario, which you talked about in your radar, where it hurts, but 90% of people approve of our president and want to do whatever it takes to stop Vladimir Putin. That is not the case. If you ask people, they'll say, no, I don't want to pay higher gas prices for this conflict. I'm not willing to do it. I can't afford to do it. What if you're a truck driver? What if you have a business? I have a family member who has a business that involves, great small business, involves driving around in a large vehicle a lot, from work site to work site. Think how people like that, their take-home pay is being squeezed by a policy that has created this. And we're really glad that gas prices are coming down down now. I think that's probably the main reason Democrats no longer look like they're going to get totally, utterly destroyed and wiped out in the midterms. There are other reasons, but I think one of the big ones is that actually the situation's not as bad as it was 4 or 5 months ago. So maybe the administration is savvy enough to time the massive hits, the massive price increases for energy, far enough before and then somewhat after the election. Maybe they actually have enough savvy to do that because people are going to punish them for it. They don't want to pay these prices.
Yeah, it's really horrifying, but I think it does expose a more general pattern of like I said, moral preening, polishing your halo, and then asking somebody else to pay the price for you feeling good about yourself. Ralph Scholhammer, who we had on Rising a few months ago, he made a really important point. He said you can't have a middle class without affordable energy. And whether it's foreign policy with the war in Ukraine, domestic policy with electric vehicles and banning gas cars, you have over and over an elite that is enforcing its aesthetic moral preferences on the nation and asking people who can least afford it to pay for it.
Polishing your halo. I've never heard that phrase before. That's a good one.
Really?
Batya. Never heard that before. It's exactly what's going on here. All right, we'll have more Rising after this. Stay with us.